All right, for those of you who've seen Tiger King, and if you haven't, it is totally worth a waste of a binge weekend. It is quite crazy that this actually might be a semi-true statement. All right, so we have our table, and we've also seen that we can use technology as well. Again, whatever you prefer. But now we're going to work backwards. So we're going to go from our percentiles to our scores. So we're going to Z and reverse. So sometimes we start at the areas and need to find the corresponding Z score or even the original or raw score with that. So as you look at this, what Z score represents the first quartile in normal mode? So what we would look for is that decimal. So if you go to the table, we're going to be looking for 0.25, and you're going to try to look for the closest one there. So then what we look for is going to our table here. We want to look for that 0.25 or as close as we can get it. So we'll pull this up here. And as we're searching through, we can see we get 0.24, 0.248, 0.2. So we're kind of between those, and then you got to figure out which one is actually closer to 0.25. So this one is 17 away, where this one's 14 away. So this is our better value. And as we go to the side, right, we get negative 0.6, and then up we get 0.7. So our Z score is going to be negative 0.67. Okay, and you can actually get that using your table or your technology as well. And so looking at percentile, you can see how this one works as well. So we're looking for 90%. And again, we're just looking for the Z score. So which side we're looking on. The tables give us to the left side, but it doesn't matter. You can do the right side if you're doing technology as well. So again, we're looking for the closest to 90. And this is a pared down version of our Z table. So we get closest, that takes us to the 1.2 and 8. So our Z score there would be 1.28. Okay, for technology, there's a separate one we have to look at, and I'll show you that in class. It's not the standard table we looked at. If you look for the inverse table, you might be able to play around with and figure that out. Otherwise, we'll cover it in class. All right, so some key phrases as we look through this. More, greater than, and higher than, we need to subtract from 100, right? If we have our normal distribution, whatever it is, and we want more, greater than, or higher, that's that side of it. So we're going to go 100 minus whatever our percent is. If you are lower than or less than, just look for percentage it gives you. Okay, so we need to fix that, and you'll see once we jump into these here. Okay, so I want you to sketch them, shade the area, and then find the Z-score cut points. All right, so as we look at each of these, I'm going to do some quick sketches here for you. That is not a very good one. So if we're looking at the lowest 40% here, we know 50 is right at our mean, so 40% can be somewhere in there. and we're looking for the lowest of that. As we look at the highest, our highest 30%, we know there's 50, so 30% is going to be somewhere there. We want the highest, so we want that side of it. Another highest 1 and 2% is all the way out here, so it's just a little portion. And highest, so we want the right side of that. And then our middle 30 is going to be in between. Right, so if we have our mean is at 50, we want 15% on each side, so that gets us there, and I'll talk about what that means here in a bit. So we want lowest 40%, so that one's pretty good. So we're going to look for the 0.40 in our table to find our z-score. On number 2, we want the highest 30%, so we need to subtract. Okay, so that is, we're looking for 0.70. Same deal, we're going to subtract from 100, and we want 0.98. And again, you probably aren't finding exact values of this. You're going to get as close as you can. And then our middle 30, right, we're at 50, and we go 15 to each side. So this left side is 50 minus 15 is at 35%, and then the right side is 50 plus 15, which is 65%. So we're looking for 0.35 and then also 0.65% in our table. Okay, so we're looking for that in our tables to find our z-scores. Okay, and so for our first one here, our z-score, we get a negative 0.25. Okay, and then for this one, for our highest 30%, we get 0.52. And then for our next one, our highest 2%, we end up with 2.05. And then our last one between, we are at negative 0.3839. And there, depending on which one you put, you kind of land right there in between. And then also the other side is going to be the same. We're just positive. So 3.8 or 3.9, depending on where you kind of choose, because we land right in between. Okay, so those would be our z-scores, our cutoff points for each of those problems. So to take that one step further, we want to be able to find the raw score for a percentile. So what we want to do is step 1, look for the percentile as a decimal in our z-table, which we've done. We want to now plug that z-score in. For there, we know we would have to know the mean and the standard deviation, and then we can solve for our y, which we've done before, and then solve for that y. So taking the problems that you have done, now given that information there, see if you can't find the raw score of each of those. All right, so then after solving for each of these, should be right around, depending on rounding, 143.75, 1.53.76. For our highest 2%, we should be at 173.65. And then for our middle 30, the left cut point for the negative 0.385 is 142.06, and for the right cut point of the positive 0.38, that's 151.94.